The importance of being
Earnest! What?
earnest.
Gwendolyn!
Jack!
Cecily? Cecily! Algernon!
Ernest. Cecily.
Letitia!
Gregory.
Chisholm!
Ernest.
Cousin Gwendolyn. Ham! Ernest, Sister Wondering. Not now, eh?
I'm very fond of being looked at. Young women are greedy.
I am a son of it, madam! I'm sick to death of clever people!
In fact, you're never wrong.
Did you even hear what I was playing?
Oh, no, sir. I didn't think it polite to listen.
Well, I'm sorry for that, for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression. As far as the guitar is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, and speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Not too shabby, Lane, not too shabby. Oh, by the way, I see from your book that on Thursday night, when Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Oh, yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
Well, I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I've often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state. Sir, I've had very little experience of it myself up to the present. I've only been married once, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I am much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, it's not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, Lane! Be a dear and bring me those cucumber sandwiches, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Come on. Thank you. Dearie me. Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. I mean, really, if the lower orders don't set the rest of us a good example, then what on earth is the use of them? They seem, as a class, to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Oh. Lane, blame that dog! Jesus, man.
Come on, man. Can't get the stuff these
You
days.
really can't. How are you, my dear Earnest? What brings you up to town?
Pleasure. What else should bring one anyway? You're eating again, as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it's customary in good society to have some slight refreshments at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
Oh, in the country.
What on earth do you do there?
Well, when one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are these people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours.
What nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. I never speak to any of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your country, is it not?
Eh? What? Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello, what's all this? Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
Oh, how perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of you being
And why do you say that?
My dear boy, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. This is almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
Well, I am in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
And I thought you'd come up for pleasure. I call that business.
Oh, how utterly unromantic you are.
Oh, I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, There is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted, one usually is, I believe, and then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I'll certainly try and forget the fact.
I've no doubt about that, my dear Algie. The divorce courts were invented especially for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there is no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Don't be eyeing those cucumber sandwiches, boy. They're cut especially for Aunt Augusta.
You've been eating them all this time, though.
But that is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
Oh, and very good bread and butter it is, too.
Oh, well, you need not eat as if you were going to eat it all, dear boy. You act as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already. I don't think you ever will be.
And why on earth would you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
That's nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees about the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear boy, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you'll have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What do you mean, Algernon? What on earth do you mean by Cecily? I don't know anybody by the name of Cecily.
Oh, bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
You mean to say that you've had my cigarette case all this time? But your goodness, you let me know. I was writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a very large reward.
Oh, well, I wish you would. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
Well, there's no use in offering a very large reward now that the thing is found.
I think that is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter. For now that I look upon the inscription inside, I find the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You see me with that thing 100 times, and you've absolutely no right to read whatsoever is written on the inside of that cigarette case. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case. Just give it back. Just give it back.
It's absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should and what one shouldn't read. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I don't doubt that, but I don't propose to discuss modern culture with you. It's not the sort of thing one talks about in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case, is it? This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily, and you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Oh, your aunt.
Yes,
of
and a
course.
wonderful woman she is too.
Oh.
She lives in Tunbridge Wells, actually. Just give it back.
Oh, yes.
Give it back.
Why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Huh? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. I'm sure that's a matter any aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt in the world should behave exactly like your aunt, and that would be absurd.
No, but why does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
What? But you've always told me it was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. My dear boy, you are without a single doubt in my mind the single most earnest-looking human being I have ever had the mispleasure of seeing in my life. It's perfectly absurd you saying your name isn't Ernest. It's on your card, so here is one of them. Mr. Earnest Worthing before the Albany. And I'll keep this as proof that your name is Ernest if ever you attempt to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country. And that cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Okay. Yes, but on the other hand, that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come on, boy, much better have the thing out at once.
My dear Algie, you're talking exactly as though you were a dentist. It's a very vulgar thing, right, to speak like a dentist when one is not a dentist. It produces a false impression.
Well, that's exactly what dentists always do. Now go on, tell me the whole thing. I may mention, I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist, and I am quite sure of it
A
now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me of why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now,
Thank
produce
you.
your explanation, and pray, Makes it
Oh,
improbable.
my dear fellow, there is nothing improbable about it. In fact, it is perfectly ordinary. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me, in his will, guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle from motives of respect that you cannot possibly begin to imagine, lives at my place in the country under the charge of our admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Ooh, where is that place in the country, by the way, dear
Now,
boy?
that is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you quite candidly, however, that the place is not in Shropshire.
Oh, I suspected that, my dear fellow. I have bunburyed all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
Oh, my dear Algy, I doubt you'll be able to understand my real motives. You're hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of moral guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all fronts. And seeing as a very high moral tone cannot be said to be very conducive to either one's health or one's happiness, in order to get into town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Earnest, who lives in the Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. And that, my dear young Algy, is the truth of it. Pure and simple.
My dear boy, the truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if we were either, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
And that wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Please don't try it. You should leave that to people who haven't been at university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you're a Bunburyist. In fact, you're one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother named Earnest in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. Now, I, on the other hand, have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may be able to go down to the country whenever I deem fit. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for his extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willie's, for I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
See, I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know, you're absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It is very foolish of you. Nothing irritates people more than not receiving invitations.
Look, I think you'd really much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
Oh, I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind, dear boy. Firstly, I dine there on Monday, and once a week is more than enough to dine with one's own relations. Secondly, whenever I do dine there, I'm always treated as a member of the family and sent down with either no woman at all or 2. Thirdly, I know perfectly well who that woman will place me next to tonight. She'll place me next to Mary Farquhar.
Oh, God.
Always flirts with her husband across the dinner table. It really isn't pleasant. Indeed, it isn't even decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It is simply... Washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you the rules.
I am not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I am going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him at any rate. Cecily is becoming a little too much interested in him. It's rather a bore, really. So, I'm going to get rid of him, and I would strongly advise you to do the same with your, with your invalid friend, with the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if ever you get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you'll be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That's nonsense, Algy. If I marry a sweet, charming, refined girl like Gwendolen, and she is the only woman who I've ever considered I wanted to marry, then I certainly wouldn't want to know Mr. Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realise that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is not.
See, that, my dear Algy, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 30 years.
Yes, and the happy English home has proved in half the time.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Don't try to be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear boy, it isn't easy being anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. There must be Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen. Only creditors or relatives ring in such a Wagnerian manner. Now, If I get her out of the way for 10 minutes, so that you might have an opportunity for proposing to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you tonight?
Yes, I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. They're so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Algernon! Gustav!
I hope you are behaving very well.
Oh, well, I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
We both know that is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning.
Dear me, you are smart, aren't you?
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
Oh, you are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not bad. That would leave no room for developments, and I intend to develop into many directions.
I'm sorry if we are a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on the dear Lady Hartbury. I haven't been there since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. Now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolyn, would you come sit over here?
Thanks, Mama. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were cucumbers.
There were no cucumbers at the market this morning, sir. I went down twice. No cucumbers?
No, sir, no, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Hartbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed its colour, from what I, of course, cannot say.
There you go.
Thank you.
Gwendolyn.
Thanks, Alan.
I've quite a surprise for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She is such a nice lady, and so attentive to her husband. It's a delight to watch them.
I am afraid, Aunt Augusta, that I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
It is a great bore, and I need hardly say a terrible disappointment to me, but I have just received a telegram saying that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad haze.
Yes, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
I think it is high time whether he made up his mind whether he was going to live or to die. The shilly-shallying with the issue is absurd. Nor do any people should approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. It's morbid. Illnesses of any kind should never be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I'm always saying that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice as far as any improvement in his ailment goes. I should be obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury, from me, not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that inspires conversation, especially at the end of the season, when everything has practically been said by everyone. And it was probably not very much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious, but I think I can promise you he'll be all right by Saturday. Of course, music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen. And if one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll run through the programme I've drawn up if you'll kindly accompany me into the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. It's very thoughtful of you. I am sure that the program will be delightful after a few expositions. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People always seem to think that they are improper and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German sounds to me a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed I think is so. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mama.
Well, charming day it's been, Miss Fairfax.
Ah, pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Wood. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they actually mean something else. And that makes me feel so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
And I would like to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence in order to...
Yes. I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back into her room suddenly that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax,
Yes, Mr. Worthing.
ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any other girl that I ever met since I met you.
I'm quite well aware of that fact. And I often wish that in public, at any rate, you had been a little more demonstrative. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. Now, my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
Oh, you really love me, Gwendolen.
Passionately.
Oh, my darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own one.
But do you mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Earnest?
But your name is Earnest.
Yes, I know, but supposing that it was something else, do you mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, has very little in common with the facts of real life as we know them.
Personally, darling, I don't much care for the name of Earnest. I don't think it suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly! It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Personally, I'm sure there are many other much nicer names. I think, for instance, Jack would be a charming name.
Jack.
Yes.
There is very little music in the name of Jack, if any at all, indeed. I have known several Jacks, and they were all more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John. And I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She will probably never be allowed the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolen, I must get christened at once. I mean, married at once. That's what I mean. There's not a moment to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely you know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you. But you haven't proposed to me yet. In fact, nothing has been said about marriage at all. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it's an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, I think it is only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully willing to accept you.
Oh, Gwendolen.
Yes, Mr. Worthing? What have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it!
All right, yes. Gwendolen, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling! How long have you been about it? I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one, I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. Oh, Ernest. What wonderfully blue eyes you have. They're quite blue. I hope that you will always look at me just like that. Especially when there's other people present.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from that semi-recumbent position. It is most ridiculous.
Mama, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mama.
Pardon me? You are nothing of the kind. When you do become engaged, I or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be. It is hardly a matter she could be arranged for herself. Mr. Worthing, I have a few questions to put to you. While I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolen, and your jacket will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama!
The carriage, Gwendolen! Gwendolen! The carriage! Mr. Worthing, you can take a seat.
Thank you, Mr. Bracknell, but I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men, although I share the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I'm quite happy to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Yes, I must admit that I do smoke.
You do.
I do.
Pray provide me one. Although I am pleased to hear that you smoke, those are bad. Luckily you have an occupation of some kind. There are too many idle men in London as it is.
Of course.
I have always been of the opinion that a man who wishes to be married knows either everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
Nothing.
Yes.
I am pleased to hear it. I allow nothing to stand in the way of natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole idea of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any rate, the educational system provides no extra benefits whatsoever. If it did, it would probably be a very, very bad thing for the upper classes and would prove a serious revolt in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is not unsatisfactory. What between expected from one during one's lifetime and what exacted from one after one's death, land ceases to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position, but it keeps one from keeping it up. That is all that can be said about land.
Well, I do own a country house, of course, with some land attached to it. Although I don't depend on that for my main income. In fact, I think the poachers are the only people who make anything of it at all.
Country house?
Yes, yes.
How many bedrooms?
It's about,
You can clear that matter up afterwards.
right, yes.
You do own a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolen could hardly be required to reside in the country. You have a townhouse?
I do have a townhouse, yes, yes I do. But it is in fact let by the year to a Lady Bloxham. I can't get it back, of course, whenever I like, at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham.
Yes.
I do not know her.
Well, she gets about very little. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Nowadays, that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number?
149, Albert Square.
Oh, the unfashionable side. I knew there was something. Well, we can all alter that.
You mean the fashion or the side?
Both if necessary, I presume.
Right.
What are your politics?
I'm afraid I don't really have any. I'm a liberal unionist.
They count as Tories. They come in the evening, at any rate. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I'm afraid I've lost both my parents.
Both?
Yes.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both? Looks like carelessness. Who's your father? He was evidently a man of some ways. Did he come from what the radical papers call the Parle of Commerce? Or did he rise to the ranks of aristocracy?
I'm afraid to say that I really don't know, Lady Bracknell. When I said that I'd lost both my parents, it would actually be nearer the truth to say that they seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes, yes. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, a gentleman of a very kindly and generous disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket to the train to Worthing in his pocket at the time. You see, Worthing is in Sussex. It's a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman with this first-class ticket to the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag!
Yes, Lady Bracknell. I was in a handbag, a perfectly ordinary black leather handbag with handles on it. You could put stuff in there. And it was an ordinary handbag, in fact.
And in what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom of Victoria Station.
A cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, on the Brighton line.
The life is immaterial. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life. One of those decencies is handing my cane.
Oh, of course.
I do hope that you know what that unfortunate revolt led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion, has probably indeed been used for that purpose before now, but can hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
Well, what would you expect me to do then, Lady Bracknell? I can guarantee you, of course, that I have nothing but the best in mind for Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a determined effort to make at least one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
But I really don't see how you would expect me to do such a thing, Lady Bracknell. I can, of course, provide the handbag at any moment. I have it upstairs. I really do think that should satisfy you.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly expect that a girl brought up with the most utmost care would marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parson. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning, Lady Bracknell. For heaven's sake, stop playing that ghastly tune, Algy!
Oh, didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to tell me Gwendolyn refused you? I know it's a way she has. Gwendolyn is always refusing people. I think it most ill-natured of her.
Gwendolyn is all right as a trivet. As far as she's concerned, we have to be engaged. Her mother, on the other hand, is perfectly unbearable. I've never seen just a Gorgon in all my life. I'm not actually entirely sure what a Gorgon looks like, but I'm quite sure that Lady Bracknell is one. The woman is a monster without being a myth, which I honestly think is rather unfair of her. I'm sorry, Algy, I don't suppose I should be talking about your family in front of you like that.
Oh, my dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It is the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't the remotest knowledge on how to live, nor the faintest instinct on when to die.
That is nonsense.
It isn't.
Yes, it is.
It isn't.
Yes, it is.
It isn't.
Look, I don't want to argue about this. You always want to argue about things.
Well, that is exactly what things were originally made for.
Oh, upon my word, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't think that Gwendolyn is going to turn out anything like her mother in about 150 years' time, do you?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does, that is his.
Is that clever?
It is perfectly phrased and quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be.
Oh, I'm sick to death of cleverness. Everybody's clever nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
Oh, really? I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools
Yeah.
are about the clever people, of course.
Oh, but fools.
By the way, did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about you being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
Oh, the truth isn't the sort of thing one reveals to a smart, simple girl like that. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she is pretty, and to someone else if she is plain.
That is nonsense.
What about your brother? What about the prolific Earnest?
Oh, before the end of the week I shall have gotten rid of him. I shall say that he died quite suddenly in Paris of apoplexy. Quite a lot of people die quite suddenly of apoplexy, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families.
Right.
You'd much better say of a severe chill.
And you're quite sure that a severe chill isn't hereditary?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. My unfortunate brother Ernest to be carried off quite suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. There, that gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel has lost a good deal?
Oh, Cecily isn't as sentimental as all that. She has a capital appetite, enjoys long walks, and pays absolutely no attention at all to her lessons.
I would rather like to see, Cecily.
And I will take very good care that you never do. She's excessively pretty and only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn you have an excessively pretty ward who's only just 18?
One doesn't blurt these things out to people. I guarantee you anything that Gwendolyn and Cecily are to be the best of friends. Within half an hour of meeting each other, they will be calling each other sister.
Oh, women only do that when they've called each other a lot of other things first. Now, my dear boy, if we want to get a good table at Willie's, we really must go and dress. Do you know it's nearly 7?
It's always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
What shall we do after dinner? Go to a theatre?
Oh no, I hate listening.
Well, let us go to the club.
I can't stand talking.
Well, we might trot round to the Empire at 10.
I can't bear looking at things. It's so silly.
Then what shall we do?
I don't know. Nothing.
Oh, it is awfully hard work doing nothing. However, I don't mind hard work when there's no definite object of any kind. What is it now, Elaine?
Miss Fairfax.
Oh, gosh. Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Can you walk away? I have something very particular to say to Mr. Wilde. Ernest. We may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regards to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out, and every influence I've ever had over Mamma, I've lost at the age of 3. But, although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I probably may marry someone else, and marry often, there's nothing she can do to alter my eternal devotion to you.
Oh, Gwendolyn, my darling.
The romantic stern of your urging, as brought to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. Your address in the town I have? What is your address in the country?
It's the Manor House in Woolton, Hertfordshire.
It might be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
When?
How long do you remain in town?
Until Monday.
Good. Algie, you might come back.
Thank you, I've come back already.
Well, then, you might also call Elaine.
Right. Lane!
Well, you will let me see if you can, my darling.
Certainly, yes. Thanks, Lane. Too late. That was my job.
But you never do well, Lane, if I say so myself. Can you get me a glass of sherry, please?
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, I'm going on a little trip. I probably shan't be back till Monday. You can put on my dress clothes, the smoking jacket, and Bunbury suit. Oh, for heaven's sake, Lane, can you clean that up once you're done, please?
Oh, yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Oh, Lane, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
There's a sensible, intellectual girl. The only girl I've ever loved in all my life.
What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm a little anxious about poor Bunbury is all.
If you don't take care, your friend Bunbury will get you into a serious scrape someday.
Well, I love scrapes. They are the only things that are never serious.
That is nonsense, Algie. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Well, nobody ever does. Tomorrow, I'm going Bunbury.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now have a 15-minute break, so please leave the theatre.